All right. Well, I'm going to get started because we literally went the exact full time. And interesting fun fact is I actually spent the last couple of days trimming pieces out so that I could fit it into the time frame, but I did not do a time check. And we literally finished right at the top of the hour in the morning session. So I just got really lucky with that. But this is going to be very interactive. I'm going to do a lot with the chat window. In fact, you're going to start off right away with the chat window. I'm going to ask you guys to open that. Sometimes I'll ask you to talk verbally, and then sometimes I'm going to ask you to insert chat messages. Before I get started with an overview or agenda or anything like that, I'm going to show you a quick video of a presenter, and I would like you to put into the chat window how this presenter could improve. What could they do to make themselves a better presenter? And we'll review it a little bit together. Here comes the video.
The British imposed a lot of unpopular taxes on the American colonists and didn't let them elect representatives to the British government. In retaliation, the Americans started to boycott British goods. In 1773, Americans in Massachusetts dumped a shipload of British tea into Boston Harbor. This became known as the Boston Tea Party. As punishment, the British imposed laws known as the Intolerable Acts, including the Quartering Act, which made Americans let British soldiers live in their homes. Some of the American colonies created a Declaration of Rights and Grievances, which they sent to Britain, but the British just sent soldiers to the colonies to put down any rebellion. This led to the first battles of the Revolution at Lexington and Concord.
Thank you, Ranjit.
So I've been watching the chat window, and you guys have a lot of really, really good pieces of feedback here. A lot of them have to do with the monotone, with the notes, obviously. That seems to kind of go without saying. We don't want to read from notes. And not engaging with the audience. There was some issues with eye contact for sure. How did the audience seem engaged?
Nope. Not at all.
No, in fact, the exact opposite. Yeah, they were
disengaged.
A lot of them were looking at their phones, which, we see from time to time during a lot of our presentations. We don't want to see that. I see something that says better slides. I could not. What was the biggest issue with the slides, would you say?
They were very plain. There was no, he could have just read off the slides and he would have been.
Yeah.
There was also no real structure to the pictures. They were just slapped onto the end of a bullet point.
Yeah.
I mean, the slides were almost not even connected to his presentation.
Yeah.
So these are all really great. So he's had some time. He switched his topic. He got some tips. Now what I'd like you to put into the chat window, where did he improve? What are the improvements he made?
Good morning. Today I'd like to talk about the causes and effects of stress and how to cope with stress. Stress has many causes, including work or school, life events, changes, or unrealistic expectations of yourself. Some effects of stress include headaches, trouble sleeping, depression, or lack of concentration. I know how hard it can be to deal with stress. Last year, I started working after school to save for college, but I didn't have time to do homework and my grades went down. I had trouble sleeping, I only ate junk food, and I stopped hanging out with my friends. Fortunately, I was able to talk with a school counselor to manage my stress. She suggested that I reduce my hours at my job, eat healthy foods, and get some exercise. So I literally started walking home from school and bringing my lunch. I also asked my teachers for extra help. Now, I feel better. It's important to recognize when you're stressed and to ask for help. Thank you.
see what we got. Making eye contact with his audience, absolutely. You notice he had notes with him the second time.
Yeah,
He never
but he
used
didn't read
them.
off of them.
He didn't read them. He actually didn't need them. And I actually find that very common that people have notes just in case and they don't use them. And sometimes they actually get in the way a little bit. The audience obviously responded differently. Aside from the fact that he did a better job, what other reason do you suppose the audience was responding or more engaged with him?
May have been a more interesting topic.
Interesting? What do you mean by interesting?
Well, more of a something they could relate to a little more.
Something they
really
could
relate to the
relate
American
to.
Revolution. Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at.
He sounded genuine, more sincere and genuine.
Why do you suppose that is?
He spoke from his real world experience.
Yeah.
Oh, you're speaking to the choir, saying all the right things. He was more engaged with his content because his content meant something to him. Obviously, the Boston Tea Party didn't mean much to him at all. I've been doing this kind of work for a long time, like 30 years, and I've always encouraged people to try to speak, but in front of people. But the key to doing it successfully is talking about something that you know, that you believe in, that you enjoy. Then it's not a chore. Then it's not a punishment to speak. It's actually a privilege, and people can tell, and they say a lot more engaged with you. So a lot of this feedback is great, better body language. I mean, he started off with a smile, and he stayed smiling and looking happy to be there the entire time. One of the things that I really try to focus this course on, and by the way, this is a subset course. Brianna's been through the whole course, right, Brianna? 4 years ago.
Would recommend.
This is yeah, thank you. This is a subset, but of all the lessons that I would teach, my goal for you all is to be memorable. The problem is we could be memorable for two reasons. It could be so bad, such a train wreck, that the people are standing around the water cooler talking to each other. Oh my God, can you believe how awful that was? I felt terrible for him. Nothing worked. Slides didn't work. Now he's memorable, or she is memorable, but for the wrong reasons. What we want to do is we want to be memorable for the right reasons. We want them talking about us because we were so engaging. We were so interesting, creative, clever, came up with great storytelling techniques, and got the message across in a good way. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're spending time on this today. I know that you all in the SE field all spend a lot of time in front of our key power players, our customers, our partners. We don't want them feeling that you're memorable for the wrong reasons. We want them feeling you're memorable for the right reasons, that Forescout has like some of the best presenters in the industry. We want that reputation to go across. So we have about 3 hours to just talk about some of my tips on what I call the core of presentation skills. Again, this is a small subset of a full course, but this is what I always start with in my course. Some of the key aspects. So these are the 4 things we're going to cover in the next few hours. We're going to start by talking about keeping your message simple. Sounds simple, but not always so easy. Holding on to your audience's bits. What does that mean? We'll get to that. Using what I call substance, style, and sparkle. And then finally, how to build a presentation. Not just the way that a lot of people do it, by creating slides. I'll just start creating slides. That's not usually going to create a presentation that has a cohesive beginning, middle, and end. And that's really what we're striving for, is that our presentation comes across like a story. Like a Pixar movie, I always say, has a good beginning, a really solid middle, and a good conclusion. And that only can happen if you've built the presentation well. So we'll start off talking about keeping it simple. So in the chat window, share with everybody what this means. What does that stand for?
Keep it short and simple, stupid.
Very good. Didn't follow instructions, but very good. Chat window. But that's okay. Some people say keep it simple silly or something like that, if you want to be nice about it. But what does it actually mean? There's a lot of things that are very complicated out there in this world. And some people really love to show off their knowledge by talking about things at a very a very deep, low level, getting into the weeds really fast. In fact, I've been working with SEs for 15, 16, 17 years. And I find that SEs and product managers, they all do the same thing. They start talking technical very fast. They get into the weeds very quickly. My question is why? Why do you suppose that is? Thank you, Hunter. That's sweet. Why do you suppose the technical folks such as yourself tend to get so technical so fast when they're presenting? And you can put it in the chat window, or you can share it live. Let's share it live.
I was going to say, because we're speaking to topics that we know and are important to us.
Yep.
Okay.
It's our comfortable space.
Yeah, it's the comfort zone.
The comfort zone is really what I'm looking for. You can still know the topic and enjoy the topic, but you don't have to get really super technical. I usually find this comes into two different answers. One, that's my comfort zone. That's what I know how to do. The second answer I usually get is because that's what people want. They want to understand our technical content. And I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that at all. The problem with getting too technical, too fast, too into the weeds is that we end up finding this in our audience. They're checked out. And I see this at our sales conferences. I look around a lot during our sales conferences, and that includes main stage presentations. And you can tell when people are checked out. They're usually on their phone. And that could be for a variety of reasons, which we'll talk about a little bit more later on. So it's not that, or they might be on their phones, their gadgets of sorts. It's not that they don't want the technical content. They do. It's how we deliver it. And starting off with a simple message, a simple analogy sometimes is all it takes. I usually advise, keep it high level and let them take us down as they ask questions. But don't start down at the bottom. Keep it high level. Let's look at simplicity in action. Somebody that I know you've all seen before, no longer with us, but I think this is a great example. Yes.
Doesn't this really fall down to know your audience?
Even if your audience are technical people, that does not mean this does not apply.
Okay.
You can still bore a technical audience if all you do. I mean, I could give you 3 or 4 examples from sales conferences in the past.
Oh, that was not what I was saying.
So what were you saying?
I was saying know your audience, because that will tell you what level of technical to start at and where to go from there. If you don't know your audience, then you're lost before you begin.
I agree with that. And that is a whole other subject, but I agree completely. If you're talking to the C-levels, you're probably going to want to keep it at a pretty high to highish mid-level. They're not going to want you to go too deep. But even if you're talking to the technical experts at the company, you can still start with some simplicity, use some analogy, some storytelling. And then, as I said, go into the areas that they want to take you to. Now, let's take a look at this example, this video of simplicity in action.
This is that Sony product. Again, one of the best in the field. 1.2 inches down to 0.8 inches. This is the MacBook Air. 0.76 inches down to an unprecedented 0.16 inches. Now, I want to point something out here. The thickest part of the MacBook Air is still thinner than the thinnest part of the TZ series. Okay? We're talking thin here. So, it's so thin, it even fits inside one of these envelopes that we've all seen floating around the office. And so let me go ahead and show it to you now. This is it. Let me take it out here. This is the new MacBook Air, and you can get a feel for how thin it is. Yeah, there it is. Look at this.
Now, interesting fun fact. I did this training over the summer for our interns at Forescout. I've done that for the last 2 or 3 years now. And these interns, almost 100% of them have no idea what that yellow envelope is. They've never heard of such a thing, never seen one before. So I have a question. Do you suppose, that was, of course, Steve Jobs, who knew how to present. That was one of his amazing skills. Do you suppose Steve Jobs didn't know anything about the technical specifications of that laptop, the processor speed, how much memory, how much CPU, how much hard disk space? He must not have known all that stuff because he didn't share it. There's no need. No. Nobody in that audience questioned his technical skill. He just knew how to attract his audience. Now, imagine something. I would like you to, and this is going to be a chat window question. Imagine you were in that audience that day and you saw that presentation and you came home to have dinner with your family and you're telling them, hey, I saw Steve Jobs present today. He did 2 things that I thought were really good. He showed some really nice charts and graphs, not busy slides, easy charts to understand. Do you suppose the first thing you would tell your family about were the charts and the graphs he shared? Or do you suppose the first thing you would share with your family was how he exposed the laptop from the envelope? Put it in the chat window. Charts, graphs, or envelope? Which would you share first? Interesting. In the morning, okay, there's always one, Stephen. There's always one that likes the charts. We had one in the morning session as well. And I have done this training for 15 years. I've done it all over the world. Obviously, it's usually well over 95% of the people. It's all about the envelope.
To be fair,
and again, I mean, the what?
Sorry, I was going to say, to be fair, the chart, when he like flips it and shows you that it's still thinner, that's pretty cool. I mean,
it is cool. You have to you have to think about it for a second, what he's showing you. Once you think about it and you understand it, yeah, it's good information to have. There's no doubt about it. What I started off this morning or this afternoon with was being memorable. He knows how to be memorable. People are going to be talking about that moment. We still talk about it to this day, over 10 years, 15 years later. That's the key, is finding ways to be memorable for the right reasons, of course. I'm a big fan, most of you know this about me, I'm a big fan of using imagery to help keep it simple. Don't fill your slides with tons of text. If you want to talk about our amazing dashboards, don't put text that talks about the dashboard. Show me the dashboard. Imagery is a great way to help keep things simple. And you've seen that in my PowerPoint course. I talked about it. But I want to point out that he uses 2 types of imagery. He had the picture of the manila envelope on a slide. He also had a prop. He had the prop of the actual laptop in a manila envelope. And I want to just remind you of how his audience responded to both of those image options. The first with the slide.
It's so thin, it even fits inside one of these envelopes that we've all seen floating around the office.
And what's great there is he got audience response. Anytime you hear anything back from your audience, you get applause, gasps, anything like that. That's a good moment. That's usually your way of knowing, hey, they're going to remember that. They're going to remember that moment. Good for me. Now let's take a look at how they responded to the prop.
This is it. Let me take it out here.
So he actually had two different types of responses there. The first was a big, thunderous round of applause. That's monumental when you can get that from your audience during a presentation. It's not easy to get, but when you get that, you know that's memorable. You know they're going to remember that and you succeeded. But then he also got the big audible gasp from the audience, another really great moment. And so I've shared this for 4.5 years here at Forescout. It's a simple solution for you guys. All you need to do is take our appliances around in a big envelope and then show them to your customer in a meeting. You're going to get a big gasp. Obviously, we don't have that luxury. So that's where you guys have to think outside the box sometimes. And that's really the key. You guys are clever people. You want your audiences to be responding like this, staying engaged, staying interested, having a good time. This shouldn't always just be technical work. We can make things fun as well. I want to summarize this first lesson by saying that simplicity does not mean lack of knowledge. Knowing how to simplify something to a way that everybody understands clearly actually shows your skill as a presenter. And just like Steve Jobs, nobody's going to doubt your technical knowledge. Steve Jobs said it best. This is his quote. He said, "Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication." You show me how to be simple, I'm going to find you very sophisticated. And finally, if you could describe it to your grandparents and they understand what we do, I challenge you to do that sometime. Explain to your grandparents or your parents what it is we do here at Forescout. You can describe it in a way that they understand. You are keeping it simple.